Welcome to That 30 Show, a podcast where we talk about the good, the bad, and the surprising parts of our 30s. I'm G, and I'm finally 30. I'm excited to find out if 30 really is the new 20, because if it is, then the best years are yet to come.
And I'm David. I'm entering my mid-30s. I used to have no back pain or trouble sleeping, but now I live off a healthy diet of self-help books and dream of being in bed by 10 p.m. every night. Join us each week as we try to figure out together what life in your 30s is all about.
Welcome back to That 30 Show.
Welcome back, and this week we are joined by Jonathan. Jonathan, hey, how's it going?
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello. Hi.
Jonathan is joining us all the way from Hong Kong at 9 a.m., so thank you for waking up for us.
Yeah, very impressive.
It's so early.
So Jonathan, back in high school, we were classmates, and we were pretty good friends, I'd say. I would say Jonathan's probably one of my closest friends back in high school, but I haven't talked to the guy. I haven't talked to you for years. So this is a bit of a reunion for you and I, even though you've been enthusiastic supporter of the show, and you've always sending us a lot of your opinions. In fact, some of our previous uncuts where we share a lot of like the listener feedback, like half of it is from you, I feel like.
Yeah, I've even shared your feedback, Jonathan, with my friends, and we've had like conversations about it and things like that. So yeah, I mean, thanks for generating all this discourse for us.
It's just really cool to have this 30s show thing, because a lot of the things that you talk about on the show, I didn't even realize were themes and topics that were coming up in my daily conversations. And then it's just really interesting to hear something like from a different perspective, and you can just fire it up like on a commute to work, and like it just brightens up my day. So thank you so much.
Oh,
I mean,
that's nice.
That's awesome.
I know you think I'm a very insincere guy, you know, based on our past high school interactions.
Oh,
I'm talking to him, not you.
He's not wrong, and I don't. It's a long history. So. What about your life? How does life look like right now? I think there was a celebratory thing that happened very recently. I don't know if you want to mention that.
So I recently got engaged, and we have
Congrats.
two beautiful. Thank you. And we have two beautiful kids. The older one, she's 3, and the littler one is 1, and they're both hilarious and amazing. 100%, like 10 out of 10, recommend. Get married, get kids. You don't need the marriage. Get kids. I mean, yeah.
get some kids.
Yeah, make them, pop them.
How was the engagement? Like, did you have a whole like setup and stuff?
Yeah, got like a hotel room. Opened the door. I didn't have to say much, which is always good. And then she was happy about it.
Were you nervous?
So a little bit, yeah. But it went good. And then, because leading up to it, it was kind of a surprise, but kind of not, because I was like, hey, what do you want to eat that night? And she's like, McDonald's. And I'm like, what? Why? And she's like, I like McDonald's, you know, cheap and cheerful. And I wanted to make it special, but she kept saying McDonald's, so we ended up getting Chinese food instead, but it wasn't anything fancy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good.
It kind of reminds me of those times when I see those videos on TikTok or Instagram, and then the guy's, doing the surprise proposal, and then the girl's kind of annoyed because she's in sweatpants, or like she didn't put on her makeup, and she's like, I'm in sweatpants. It's like, this is not how she envisioned it to go. And then for you, it's like, McDonald's is not how I envisioned it to go, but I guess we got to roll with it.
Yeah, when it's a surprise, when it's a big surprise like that, you never know. Sometimes it just goes strangely wrong. Like you plan this extravagant thing and then it doesn't work out. I've heard about stories about that.
Yeah.
So you have 2 kids with your current fiance, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like quite young. So are you just really busy with everything and like
you don't seem busy, Jonathan, by the amount of time you spend on WhatsApp.
and listening to our podcast.
No, not even just that, but the high school chat that I do lurk and entertain myself with from time to time. How do you have time for all that? I don't get it.
I think lawyering is like a serious desk job. Most of the time we're doing stuff. Like we've also got WhatsApp open. I don't know. It's like maybe it's like a white collar thing in Hong Kong. There's not that much work being done, and you can kind of multitask.
So you're allowed to say this publicly? Like, is this?
Yeah.
Do we have to censor this? Okay.
No. Like I think it's quite like well known. People spend a lot of time on social media as well, especially with law. How the industry's like transitioning from paper-based like fax communications. A lot of the Chinese clients, what they do want is instant responses off like instant messaging apps. So we find ourselves like giving out legal advice, not only over the phone, but also over WhatsApp and whatever. So it's not weird to have WhatsApp open the entire time.
That's a convenience.
Right. So do you work longer hours then because you, I don't know, are kind of working and also doing other things? Like what is the work like in Hong Kong?
For lawyers, it's about billable hours. So it's about how much time you spend engaging with clients or doing work. But built into those billable hours, you might be thinking about something, and that might take a while because like it's not too easy. And then while you're thinking, you might also be drinking coffee or WhatsApping your friends. That's just how it goes.
Nice.
I don't think the longer hours comes from spending that extra time for yourself. I think a lot of it also comes from just how technology enables people to work that much harder. It's crazy, the hours that lawyers have to do now as compared to what they had to back then. Simply because you have a phone and you can instantly reply, you just have to do so much more.
Where do the kids fit into all of this then? Is it
the kids?
Because at least when we talked to Henry, like he was like, I just had to stop gaming. I had to stop going to the gym. I couldn't play badminton anymore.
Okay. Basically, work is a vacation from kids, and kids are a vacation from work. You squeeze in everything that you need to do, like going to the gym during lunch or going to the gym either before work or after work. You try and get all that done. And then after that, you go home, and then at nighttime, it's for playing with the kids or putting them to sleep or keeping them asleep. Both of them are like a break from the other, and neither of them are, well, I guess it's all enjoyable, right? It's how you see things. If it's like, oh, it's really stressful, then yeah, you're going to have a really bad time like taking care of kids and working because both sides suck. But if it's fun, if you scroll Instagram at work with your boss, then that's really fun. You go home with your kids and then they just like cuddle and like play with you, then it's fun and fun.
Yeah, you don't sound stressed at all having two kids, like two, I guess, toddlers.
Being a lawyer, having two young kids, like is it because I know you have domestic help? Is that perhaps part of the reason why it's not as stressful?
Yeah, that helps quite a bit. But for example, she can't help in the nighttime. Like she needs time to rest and stuff. So last night wasn't that pretty for me either. We went to an amusement park and then got home pretty late. And then 1-year-old couldn't sleep until like 9:30, and then he woke up at 12, and then he woke up at 2, and then he woke up at 4, and then he woke up at 6, and then every time he wakes up, I have to put him back to sleep. And after putting him back to sleep, and you're
here at 9.
Yeah. After putting him to sleep, it takes time for me to get back to sleep. So I don't end up with like full 8 hours either way I add it up. And in any event, it's not continuous. So it's quite tough on the body.
But at the same time, you're still talking about it in a very like lackadaisical, like, oh, it's whatever, it's not a big deal kind of way. I feel like maybe from what I remember, like you're not a type A kind of personality, far from it, right? Do you think is that I don't know, maybe you've changed over the years. Again, I haven't talked to you for so long, but like you kind of don't take anything too seriously, which is good. Like, like, don't take yourself too seriously. We're all going to die anyway. I feel like that's probably, part of how you live your life. Is that maybe, I don't know if it's a conscious thing for you or it's like fairly natural. Do you know what I'm trying to get at? Is that sort of an attitude that helps you just sort of fly by the seat of your pants comfortably day to day?
Yeah, maybe. I think it's from my college days and from my first relationship. First serious, like long-term, led to marriage and then ultimately led to a divorce relationship. What we lived by and what I still live by is that if it's not fun, why do it? So I have to approach everything in life if it were fun. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. And it's stupid. And people don't get it. People go like, well, that means you just do like hedonistic things. You just like eat caviar and drink champagne all the time. Like, no, not really. You have to change it, right? You have to change your perspective. It's got to be like, oh, actually changing nappies 10 times a day. That's so fun. Like waking up in the middle of the night. That's so fun. Yeah, it is. Because, like, how else are you going to experience parenthood? Like grinding hours. Like, that's so fun. Is it, though? Yeah.
I feel like you're just saying, like, shitty things and just adding that's so fun. And that, like, makes it fun. Like,
okay, so, Jonathan, you mentioned you mentioned a few times now that you've had a previous relationship, wife. And so in that relationship, I guess you didn't have kids then, right? Because you only have 2 kids?
Yep, that's correct.
So what was the difference between like a relationship, like that relationship without kids and now that you have like 2 kids?
I guess you don't get into, there's no fights. There's no real disagreements because it's all just because like let the good times. I think kids bring in a lot of fights because they bring in a lot of the issues between family, between like how to parent. Money issues come into play. There's no fight about money if you're both single and in your 20s and you're just rolling in like newfound money, right? Like, oh, that's great. I'm going to go party. Like, wow. You don't really fight over that. You might fight over like, oh, why did you order chicken? I ordered chicken already. Like, that's not really anything. Those issues don't matter. With kids, it's like,
so
wow.
When you said there were So you said, sorry, just to clarify, when you said there's less or no fights, that's referring to your previous one, whereas now with kids, it's more complicated, so there are more conflicts? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more, both sides have to figure out a way to live and coexist on issues that we disagree with, whereas you just don't disagree with issues that much, and then if you do, then you just divorce. Like that's not a big deal.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So the first one, there was no arguments. Like, what was the problem?
So we met in college. She's from upstate New York, so like farm girl. So she's very much of that place and of that time. So she's like pure New Yorker. She got a llama for her 8th birthday. Like, she has a farm, like, wow, cool. And I'm like a Hong Kong city boy. Yeah. So, it was really interesting to have that culture. I don't know what it's called. And I guess, she wanted to be over there. I wanted to be in Hong Kong, and classic long distance problem, which we thought it would work out. And for a while, it was working out, and I did have a job lined up, but then that got pulled away from me, and then too much time spent apart. And I think that's what led to what she put on the form for divorce was irreconcilable differences, which I disagreed with, which she said that's also an irreconcilable difference in itself. So.
Okay, that's quite funny.
So that was that.
When did you get married? Like, how old were you the first time you got married?
We started dating sophomore year, so 18, 19. Yeah, just turned 19,
Okay.
maybe something like that. 18 or 19.
That's not when you got married, though. Is that when you got?
No, that's when we started dating.
married?
That's when we started dating.
Oh.
And then I got married when I just turned 26, and then got divorced when I was 30. That was my 30-year-old present from her.
Oh no. That's
Yeah, so it fits your theme of a 30s show. Yeah, that's the first thing I got when I turned 30.
It seems like a pretty the way you framed it is quite straightforward. I have to imagine it's not straightforward, as most things in life when it comes to these things, it's fairly complicated. The straightforward part, I mean by the cultural gap. I guess
That's the word.
If I put myself in your shoes, like what I'm learning is that, okay, maybe try not date or be married to someone who has a very different life experience when it comes to, you know, having a llama when you're eight and not. But there's got to be other takeaways or things that, or was that really just, was that it? Was that clean cut? Like, oh, it didn't work out, long distance, plus we're very culturally different.
Well, and I'm wondering, like, did these things kind of come up before you got married, or was it like stuff that you realized after you got married that it wasn't going to work out?
I think it wasn't really a cultural difference thing. A lot of things we see eye to eye with. One of the only issues, I think, was the location thing. And it just took too long for me to figure things out. And yeah, it's I don't think it's a cultural thing. I think you can have a cultural gap and be pretty happy.
So then, because I'm always trying to learn from other people's sort of life experience and lessons. So I'm trying to get at what I can, I hope this is not insensitive to say, but what I can learn from your experience, right? So other than like long distance is fucking like hard and terrible and draining, like what, is there anything that you would reflect on from that time in your life that you can share with G and I?
Okay, maybe a few things. And I'm not a kind of guy who thinks that, oh, you can learn from mistakes, because when you make a mistake, like you don't know why you made the mistake, right? Like not necessarily. You'll be like, oh, like damn, I made a mistake. Like shucks. I think you learn from successes. I think you go, oh, this works. Like I'm gonna run with this. Like this is the way to go. So for me, this is not really a mistake. But prior to getting married, we did talk about like, hey, worst case scenario, what do we do? Like, I think talk about divorce before you get married. It's quite important. And we agreed that, hey, lawyers don't deserve the fees they make because they're on WhatsApp all day. So just do it ourselves. Like, that's a huge thing. And then don't fight. Like, we get that divorce sucks. Like, it took me months. I was broken. Like, I died. I'm pretty sure she did as well. Not that I would know. But divorce sucks. It's like the worst feeling in the world. But because before going into marriage, like you talk about this stuff, you have a plan. It's like this gentleman's agreement, or it doesn't have to be written. It's not a prenup thing. But we had this idea that if it doesn't work out, like don't fight, just clean break as much as possible. We respected each other enough that both sides wanted to just be like, hey, whatever money I owe you, you take it. Or like, I've got all this stuff. Can I mail it to you? Like that kind of stuff. Things are terrible, but get through it and then just respect each other's space, because it's not easy. And if you go on Reddit or you talk to anyone about divorce, and it's always like messy, and the bad ones are really bad. So, go into it talking about it and then hoping that it doesn't happen.
I was just going to say, like, it sounds like you guys had a really good communication like throughout everything. So it's like, I guess, amicable at least that you guys, you know, ended things. But I would imagine that for a lot of people, it, you know, it's like a lot of buildup, and then they don't have that sense of like communication towards the end.
Or respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another thing that she did in retrospect, which in the moment I was like, what the fuck? But another thing that she did was if I WhatsApped her or if I messaged her, emailed her in any way, if I tried to communicate with her, she would reply eventually, but she would take a day or 2 days or a week or a month. Like, I wouldn't know when it was coming, but there would be like this time gap. And then I don't know if it's to like cooler heads. It takes the emotional thing out of it, which is really what makes divorce tough. Yeah.
Well, you know, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that you, when planning to record with you, you're like, oh, I've got my engagement coming up. I don't know. Like, wait, what do you mean? I was like, are you like a proposal engagement? So I'm pleasantly surprised. It's like, oh, okay. Like, this is a guy who isn't necessarily scared off of the idea of marriage. It's not like you like did it once and you're like, oh, fuck marriage, don't believe it anymore. Clearly, it still holds some value or meaning to you, at least it does enough to your current partner that you are willing to do it. I don't know if you have anything to expand on there, but in terms of just your belief in the idea of marriage or that legal commitment, did you change your views on that after your first marriage, or no?
Yeah, I think it kind of broke me. Getting divorced, it broke that like Disney princess kind of way of looking at things, of like, oh, you know, happily ever after. That's not always the case. But coming into it the second time, like, this is what I mean by you don't really learn from your mistakes. Like, why am I doing it again? Like, I'm halfway there again. I don't know. Like, is it like a character flaw? Like, what's wrong with me? I don't know. Yeah, it's different. The conception is different. But on the other hand, I think marriage does, especially with kids, it brings about like stability. You want that kind of like very strong foundation in the relationship. And especially if she wants it, then why not?
So after you got divorced, like, what did you think when you were getting like back into the dating world? Like, what was your mindset going into dating again?
That's a good question. When I got divorced, I didn't really have any previous experience with long-term relationships, like, because I was like 18 or 19. So before that, I was just like dating that girl from that school that nobody's ever heard of, you know? Like, they weren't serious long-term relationships. So I didn't really know how to cope. Basically, I stopped at work. Like, I just stopped doing things. I would just cry on the train. So I couldn't really get back into the dating world. People were telling me like, oh, you just do what you need to do. And I think that was the best advice. So obviously I drank a bit. That doesn't help. It's not great. The food cope, that's not too good. It's all right, but food just kind of tastes like sand. Like, it's just sad.
Oh God.
Music is good. Some things sound better. Like, all the breakup songs, like, finally makes sense. Like, yeah, that's great. But I wasn't in any shape to meet any person, like man or woman, or yeah, it's just people were like, yeah, you should totally sleep around. Like, yeah, it's time to get back out there. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so, man. Like, nobody wants to talk to someone that's just like, right? Like, and you definitely don't want to sleep with a soggy blanket like that. So, like, that's just sad. But I did.
So how did you bounce back?
I latched on
like a movie montage, right? Of like, you know, this
yeah
going from his lows, and then like, you know, that movie montage when he gets his shit together. Like, what was that for you?
Yeah, I can talk about it. No, so it was also 2019. For those not familiar, 2019 in Hong Kong was also a time of great social upheaval. So there was those protests and riots going on. That also helped because I could get fired up about political issues. There was just one day where, because of the protests, there was no public transport, and then there were these shuttle buses that like shuttled us back into the city. And at that time, they had just shut down like the main road in Hong Kong Island, and the march had started on one end of the island all the way to the other, and they were like firebombing things and just trashing the place. And then the police were like catching up with them like slowly. And then basically we landed behind the police lines, and we just followed the march all the way until we popped out like in the middle. And then suddenly we were standing like as if it was like a movie. Like one side was the orcs and the other side was the elves, and it was like Lord of the Rings.
Gosh.
And yeah, we were like, oh my god. And then things started exploding, and then we ran away. And then that was like the adrenaline that like kicked me out of the depression. Yeah. You know how like you learn in psychology, like, oh yeah, fear is great, for bonding.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like that troll moment when Harry, Ron, and Hermione defeat the troll. And it's like, there's some things in life where you become best friends forever, and defeating a troll, a dungeon, or what is it? Yeah, a troll is one of them. So for you, it's surviving a pretty catastrophic protest.
Wow,
situation.
What a story. That's pretty serendipitous, I guess. Back to the relationship. I have more questions. I'm just I'm just curious, like what, like the differences between your first marriage and your now like relationship, and then now your fiance. Like, do you see any noticeable differences, like aside from the proximity of where you live and like the location and the distance and things like that, or the culture maybe, but yeah, what are some of the differences? I guess now you also have 2 children, so that's kind of like another factor. But you did say that like children brings in more fighting and things like that. So how do you like? Yeah, I'm just wondering the differences between the two.
I think it's a double-edged sword. So the highs are also higher with kids. Like it lets you value your partner a lot more as well, because you're like, wow, you're actually an amazing mom. So it's not all negative. It's just issues matter a lot more. I was told not to compare my relationships because it's probably not fair to anyone. But then I'll compare anyway.
Wait, what? No, hang on. Pause.
No, not in a bad way. I think it's just character differences. They're very different people, and it's a matter of mindset. It's not really like one's better than the other. And I think when I made the commitment in my marriage, my first marriage, it was for life, and I think I do love her forever. And with love, like you kind of see like the best and the worst parts of a person, and you accept them for what they are, and you love them for what they are. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's a commonality. Like it's like I see that both of them are annoying. They're all women. Like can't deal with them. Like hot take. Come
up with a list of Jonathan's hot takes.
Yeah, is it that hot of a take? No. The differences are really from their person and how you interact with them. Communication. I mean, I don't think I'm doing anything better than I was. Maybe I'm even worse because I've got all that emotional baggage with me, and it's a lot less fair for my fiance now because she has to deal with all that baggage and coming second and like. Because I don't know, I would find it kind of weird, like you're with someone that already made like a life commitment to that other person that just left them. It's tough. It's not nice. So there's that issue that I have to address, I guess, that we have to deal with. But that's easy to deal with when you've got two kids and you just kind of brush all that stuff under the rug, and then you got like a bigger fish to fry, right? You gotta pick schools and like get them into places and manage your finances properly and stuff like that.
I think that's a pretty common theme I hear from parents, which is like, especially, for example, I know a friend who's about to have their second kid, and then even just through the trials and the challenges and the ups and downs of pregnancy, the mom's like, I don't even have time to like really figure, like, hone in on what's going on and what's easy, what's not easy, because I just have to take care of my kid. And it sort of puts things into perspective when you have, as you said, bigger fish to fry. You mentioned the highs are high and the lows are higher and the lows are lower. I want to see if you can share what are some of one of these highest highs for you. Do you have a moment or a memory or a habit or routine?
That's a tough question. Don't really.
Oh, really?
I got like bad memory. So I mean, they just happen, right? Like it's so off the cuff. Like what happened?
So they're not big grand like.
No, they just all add up, and it's just so funny. Like when we were leaving, we were at Ocean Park yesterday. When we were leaving, and then fiance was like, "Oh, you got to go over here. Like this is the way to leave." And then I was just kind of ignoring her because I had a pram, and then I thought that the other way was the right way to go. So then Vivian's like, Jonathan, it's over here. And then my daughter thought that was funny. So then she went, Jonathan, instead of calling me daddy. And then, so yeah, she just referred to me in like third person for like 10 minutes. I thought that was funny. I mean, it's like tiny little moments. Like I posted on Instagram, like they had these stickers for elves, for Christmas elves. And then she took a candle and she stuck it, where an elf might have genitalia. It's that kind of stuff. Like it's all kind of funny and adds up. And you're like, where did you learn that from? Yeah.
You have
kids do say the darndest things.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, where did you learn that? Kids get things from like really weird places. You just have no idea where they got something from. So it's funny to listen to them, I bet.
More of a spicy question, G. Would you date a previously married man?
Ooh, that is a spicy question.
Don't worry, Jonathan will not be offended. Whatever answer you give.
Yeah, I think so. I think because, like, I mean, as we get older, I think you might probably see that more and more frequently. It's just more and more common, right? People in their 30s or in their 40s, you'd see that a lot more than if you asked me in my 20s, I'd probably say no, because like there's just a lot more fish in the sea, I suppose, who have never been married. But I mean, and not that it's anything bad, I don't think. Like it's just another life experience that somebody has gone through. I think if they have kids, it kind of makes it more complicated because you just don't know how that relationship is with like their mom and like, how the relationship is between the mom and the dad sometimes. And I think that can really complicate things. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say no.
It's fair. Very open-minded.
It comes up, like, I think on like the dating apps and stuff, people will kind of like acknowledge if that's their kid or like if they've been previously divorced and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not as uncommon as it used to be. So
yeah. So for both of you, I mean, I think I have an idea of what you would say, Jonathan, but in terms of the question of marriage first or kids first, if you have the ability to choose, is that something that is important or matters to you? Do you think that's important or meaningful to get married first if you have the ability to make that choice, or does it not really matter?
So what I did was marriage, divorce, and then kids. And then get married again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Jonathan, so like I'm not surprised that like he is very much he's not a rule follower. In fact, he'll go out of his way to be like, "What are the rules? Let me break them." Not that it's a rule, but it is probably it's safe to say that that's not the tradition. You know, if you're asking like, what is the tradition? Like that's not the traditional path.
I think having kids, babies, and little children is really tough. So I would probably prefer it if the parents have a really strong foundation before having kids, whether or not that involves marriage. Yeah, like I think marriage does still matter in society. So I think, I would prefer marriage before kids. How important is it?
In an ideal world.
I think you look at the substance, not the form. So if the two people are so committed to each other, they don't need to get married, and they're like, like F the man, like I don't need this kind of like societal stuff. And yeah, like sure, go ahead without the marriage. But to most, I think marriage matters. I think marriage signifies something. So I would prefer the marriage and then kids.
I think I would prefer that too. Not necessarily like a wedding or anything, because that's additional financial costs. But like a marriage to me is, like I think we've talked about it before, but it's another level of commitment that you just don't have before. I mean, maybe you do, but to me, it's another level of commitment. And I would like to see that commitment before I have children. But I mean, if it happens the other way around, then so be it. It's fine. What about you, David?
I think that if there are no plans to get married, then it's fine to not not get married before kids. But if both parties are interested in and find value in the institution of marriage or the act of marriage, then it is better to get married first, because then it's like, well, if we're going to get married sooner or later, if we are able to, why don't we get married first before we have kids? Mm-hmm. In a way, I feel like this is the reality, is that marriage, even though on paper and in concept, it is a lifelong, like it's a lifelong thing by the very definition of it. I feel like the reality is that kids is much more of a lifelong thing than marriage. So as in like if you have kids, you're sort of committing in a much more concrete way than signing a legal document and having a party. So it's like sort of like walk before you run. So let's get married first and then we'll have kids.
Sign a piece of paper.
Kids, you're like really locked in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Even more so than just being married. So I think that's the order of operations I would prefer. When you're talking about your your past experiences, Jonathan, and stuff, I feel like you have a very the word disarming comes to my mind. I don't know if that's the right word to use, because you're like, I was crying on the train. I was, blah, blah, blah. And you're just sort of like just saying like these, I was like, oh my God, you're like, food tastes like sand. I'm like, oh, okay. But then at the same time, at the very beginning, you were like, you were very much, oh, I don't want to do anything unless it just makes me happy. And, changing diapers 10 times a day, that's fun. These are very extreme ends of talking about life, or not talking about life, about how you've been experiencing life. You had your pretty low points where you're very open and blunt, if I may say, about how tough it was. But at the same time, now it sounds like you've, I don't know, maybe not by choice, but you just have to find a way to make the most of the mundaneness or the challenges of everyday life, that you're like, I'm gonna make everything fun. I don't really have a question here, but I just had that observation that you've talked about your
Extreme.
life and how you relate to it in very in almost polar opposite ways and at different points in your life, and I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think everything adds up. Like you're not really living if you haven't had a divorce, right? Or you're not really living if you haven't changed 10 diapers a day. Like it all adds up. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm being facetious. You don't need to go through all these different things. It doesn't have to be really difficult, or you don't need to put in a lot of hard work into your career. You don't need to have any goals. But if you do, that's fun as well. And then that's just all part of life. Like it's, suffering is life. And then being really happy is also life. Boringness is also life. it's all good.
So I'm going to hazard a guess that you don't have one of those 10-year plans or five-year plans.
Does he look like a guy with a plan? He just woke up.
Take life by the seat of his pants.
No. Yeah, I mean, like, yes, life just happens to you, right? Like, you're born, and at that very moment, life happens to you. You don't dictate that you are born.
So I was just making a joke. So you don't have a plan, or you're not attempting to.
Oh no, that was very clear. I don't have a plan. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely, I don't have a plan.
So what do you think about Peter saying how you should think long-term planning and not be blown around?
I mean, I agree in theory. In theory, that's really nice, like to have a plan. And obviously, like we work towards things, but then plans just set you up for disappointment, right? It's kind of sad in a way. Like plans raise your expectations, and the higher your expectations are, like the more depressing it is when they are not met. And if they are met, then it's not really a win. It's like, oh, it's going to happen anyway. Pat myself on the back. But if you don't have a plan and then something good happens, like, whoa, amazing. It's like winning the lottery.
Wait, so is that sounds kind of like going with the flow, but so G, do you think that's relatable to you at all? Because you're also a go with the flow kind of person?
I think Jonathan's like even more go with the flow than like on an extreme go with the flow level, if I may say. Because I mean, I have like Jonathan, goals, but I don't have like, specific, really concrete plans to get there or whatever. So I tend to take what kind of life throws at me and pivot. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan really sounds like a leaf in the wind, just YOLOing it.
Yeah, I mean, life is sucky enough as it is, right? It's like adding expectations to it. That's just depressing. It's like a very simple example would be, I want to have kids. And then like, fuck, but there's a biological clock, especially for women. Like, I really want to have kids, but I can't even find a partner to have one with. You can't really set a goal of having kids and then not meet someone, like you keep meeting people and then none of them are people that you can hang out with for the rest of your life. Like that's, you would just be so sad. Like, what, are you going to adopt? It's not the same. You want to build the family. You want that. So there's so many wants. And then the more you have these goals, the more you have these, concrete things that you're going to date 100 people off Tinder apps. You're going to have Excel spreadsheets of all your dates. Like, that's just going to make you sad. But you could just be like, okay, if it happens to me, then it happens. It would be nice. I would prefer to have kids over not having kids. I would prefer to have a retirement plan to not having a retirement plan. But then if it, if all my money just disappears because the stock market collapses, like, shucks.
I mean, I will agree with you on the expectations part. I feel like for me, I tend to have like lower expectations on things. So I'm never really disappointed when it doesn't happen. But I feel like some of the things that you just mentioned, those are things that you can work towards. Like you can put in effort or actions to make things happen. Like not everything is, it just happens to you. Like there's things that you can actually control, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is just a leaf blowing in the wind. It's just how honest you are about it. Like, yes, I could try and like shift my weight this way to be blown more towards success rather than failure, but it's just the wind, right? So yeah, I like other people do have investments and like certain plans. I have a job, like things are happening where hopefully if things work out, then I will be better off in 10 years. And I don't know how to put it.
I think what I'm trying to struggle to decide on is whether Jonathan is borderline monk-like genius level here by detaching himself from all results and expectations in life, or if he's I don't know, something else, because my most generous and positive interpretation of what you're saying is that you just found a way, or maybe you are naturally like that, where you aren't really emotionally attached to the results of your goals, if you even have them. As you said, if the stock market falls, you're like, okay, well, that's too bad. Or if you'll try and set up, this plan and have, more investments 10 years down the road than I do now, but you're not going to be completely shocked if it all falls apart, and it doesn't happen. You're not going to be too devastated by it. You'll be somewhat devastated, but not too devastated. Am I reading you right? Where you're just kind of not attaching yourself too emotionally to the positive or negative result of something?
I mean, you can also feel emotions. I think it's good to feel emotions, but maybe it's a lesson from divorce. Maybe it's something that like really broke me because I had put so much of myself into that marriage and then it just didn't work out. Something that I thought was, it was definitely going to work, and then it just doesn't work. And it's like, like, what's my cope? I guess my cope is like, well, many things in life just happen. So because of that, I think hard work is also overrated, if you want stupid hot takes, because
let's go.
Peter said, like, it's decisions, not hard work. And I absolutely agree. But I don't really agree, like, with decisions either, because you don't really have free will, right? Like, you can make decisions and then things can happen to you, right? Like, like I made a decision to...
This episode is so spicy on all fronts.
The episode title it's gonna be Nihilism and Anarchism with Jonathan Hooi.
Is it? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just...
No. I mean, I'm being facetious. Feel free to disagree with me. I don't know. I feel like you're kind of going that way. I mean, you're like.
No, because yeah, sure, try hard, but like, try. Don't even try hard. What's the point?
I mean, I can see how somebody would be. Yeah, I mean, I can see how somebody would be like jaded by that if they, once upon a time had this grand goal and they're like working towards it and they're working so hard towards it. They put all their effort into it and then it doesn't come to fruition. Like, I could see, where sort of the disappointment lies.
How do you think fatherhood has changed you, if at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
How has your life changed before and after kids? Aside from the obvious ones where you have to get up every 2-3 hours.
Life is a lot more routine. So it's not like you can wake up at 10 on a Saturday and be like, okay, let me go do my laundry. Because you've already done your laundry, because you do laundry every day because the kids are like it, and then... everything, you live and die by your calendar kind of thing. Everything's very structured because the kids need the structure. You also need the structure for your sanity. So things get planned weeks, months in advance. You think about what classes to put them in. It unlocks a whole new world. If you're a gamer, it's like if you're just playing like the basic game in the beginning. And then you have the kid and it's like, whoa, like I didn't know that this whole world existed. And then your own personal hobbies, I think it's also quite important to maintain them. It's important to stay healthy. So all that previously, I don't know, when I was in my 20s, no kids, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I'll play tennis or maybe I'll go for a run. Maybe I'll join that 5K club and then run it once. And then never do it again because I hate running, and my name's G. That goes away. That all goes away because it's like, I've got kids now, so I'm gonna try and keep my habits. I'm gonna try and get good at the things that I do. I'm gonna try and squeeze in 3 hours of climbing. That's another friend that we have. Like, I'm gonna do all these things that I need to do. Like, they're very important to me, and I'm gonna fix a specific time slot to do, which I didn't have before. Before it was like, I drank too much last night, so I'm not going to do it. Now it's like, I'm not going to drink because I need to wake up.
Oh, so man.
You can look forward to that.
Crazy life. Do you have a lot of parent friends?
No, I don't have any friends. I wish more of my friends were parents.
You sound like Henry.
I know. What is going on? Every parent's like, I have no more friends. Oh my gosh.
We have parent friends. It's just you're so busy, right? So it's a different kind of friendship.
Right.
So we do have friends. So we have parent friends. We have single friends, and the gap between singleness and parenthood. It's just like our good friend Key, if you remember him from your Warcraft days. So he's got a boy, and he had a housewarming on Saturday, and it was kind of like, okay, when are we going to show up? And then, you know, the dad was like, okay, I'm going to show up at 5:30. So then at 5:33 or something, we knocked on the door and we were there. And then everybody else was like, yeah, I'm going to show up, you know, single guys, single couples. We're going to show up at around 5:30. And then, you know, they're there at 6:30. And it's like, no big deal, because that's just how they are, right? And then we've been there before. Right. But then with little children, you're kind of like, 5:30, we're there. And then with little children, the host is also like, 5:30, you're here. And then the kids play. Like, it's a thing.
I don't get it.
Like,
why?
They have to eat dinner.
Why are you so much? I've heard of like nap times dictating your life routine and schedule, but like maybe is that it? Like why are you suddenly so punctual? Because you have kids. Doesn't actually kids make you less punctual because things come up and you have to like put out fires with them?
No, I think with kids you want to have the plan in your head, because if you're going to have to show up at a party at 5:30, you're also working in that half-hour margin of like, like they shit their pants or something. And then you work backwards. You have to get them ready. You have to go from point A to point B. You have to feed them, or is there going to be food there? Like, I think that's are their bags packed?
You've got
like you don't think about that when you're single. Like you don't think about that because you don't need to think about when you're hungry. Like if I'm hungry, I eat food. But then with a little kid, like you have to be like, oh, what do they eat?
That makes sense.
And then traveling, like I get there when I get there if I'm single. Like traveling with a kid, you're like, oh, like that's annoying.
Well, like, I think that's just also just because maybe you guys are punctual people, because I've definitely heard of also David's like scenario. Oh, well, I've definitely heard of the scenario where people like don't take into account the time it takes to get their kids ready. And so then they end up being like 2 hours late because they needed all that time to get their kids ready. So
I think what I'm hearing from Jonathan is that, and it makes sense to me, is that when you have a kid, there's just so much more you have to account for that if you don't account for it, you are going to be 2 hours late, which is somewhat unacceptable. Whereas if you're single, if you like suddenly forgot, like you woke up late, you just like walk out the door and you'll be there in maybe 15 minutes late, 30 minutes late, because there's nothing to account for. There's nothing to be responsible for as much, right? Before getting out the door, it's one step. You put on your shoes, you're out. Now it's like there's 10 steps. So if you don't account for those 10 steps, you are going to be super late.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time because you have other commitments. But you mentioned your take on hard work. It's sort of funny, but also interesting that we do always hear these your opinions or your feedback or your insights on some of the things we talk about. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but like this is your chance. Like you want to debate, you want to like throw out some more hot takes, and G's friends, they love discussing this. So like. What other episodes do you remember that you had like strong or like some opinions on? Is there anything you want to like get off your chest or like be like, oh yeah, you guys talk about that? I don't agree or I agree.
That's tough.
Tell us more about that hard work part. Tell us why you think that is overrated.
I think we touched upon it just now. Yeah, hard work can get you places, but a lot of the things, it's a matter of luck and you don't really have any control over it. So you may as well accept it. I go back to the example of dating and trying to get a family and stuff. Like that's all luck. You can't really control for it. It's not like you go on X amount of dates, then you'll find the person that you love or that loves you. You can put in as much hard work as you want, like getting plastic surgery or like fixing your like terrible personality. That's not going to make a difference. Like if the powers that be don't want you to have a relationship, then that's just too bad. It's the same with the career. It's the same with anything. Investing into NFTs and crypto, it's the same thing.
I do agree with that when it comes to like dating and relationships, but I still think that you need to put in the work, because you can't just like sit around. I mean, it does happen. You might walk down the street and bump into like the love of your life, but that's probably very few and far in between. So I think you do have to put in the work, but like you said, it does take a certain amount of luck as well to be able to like find somebody. But I consider that to be like a rare idea or topic where that comes into play. I think for everything else, like your career, your, I don't know, like how well you do in school and like things like that, I feel like hard work is the major player in determining how successful you might be. I mean, there is a luck component. I just feel like for a lot of different aspects of life, it is hard work, but we can
yeah, I could see like with health, maybe like you run and stuff, whatever cardiovascular or weight training you do, like that will help you, and that requires a lot of discipline, and then arguably that's hard work, and that will improve your odds of like living a long and healthy life, you know, if you just grip hold to a bar forever and then train your VO2 max. Yeah, I could see that being like hard work. But then you could also die in a car crash, right? Like a fiery one. Or you could just get cancer. Life's not fair. And like with a career, like I would say you have all these hardworking lawyers who put in their hours and they try so hard. And then you have someone with a pretty face and just has connections, and they're gonna be the ones that succeed and become partners. It's not the hardworking type. Like it's so hard to control. It's just whether someone likes you or not. And yeah, I put myself out there. Like hard work is about maximizing your chances of your luck, right? Sure, but then again, it's still just luck.
I'll give my very quick 2 cents, and then we can wrap it up. I'm not actually going to spend my 2 cents disagreeing with you, which I do, but I'm going to try and play devil's advocate and expand on where I think there is value and where it's helpful, the message that you're sharing, which is that I don't remember if there's like a specific quote about it, but something that I really like is the concept that I've come across, which basically that luck is a big part of anyone's success. And the point of saying that message is to try and keep you either grateful or humble. So when you're successful, realize that luck is a big part of what has led you to your success. So don't fool yourself to think that you are, you know, a self-made man or something like that. Like there are so many things that were not in your control that provided the circumstances to allow you to be where you are. It's not entirely, but many people don't give nearly as much recognition to those circumstances by chance, the luck that has given you there. And at the same time, when you fail, don't be too hard on yourself either, because luck and chance plays such a much more outsized role than I think most people recognize. And I think when people attribute everything to hard work, it's not an accurate reflection of what's actually going on, and will actually lead people to maybe put too much in stock in their abilities or be too hard on themselves or something like that. So I think it's good to have that mindset if it helps you be more humble and it helps you be less hard on yourself. And I think it's certainly true that hard work does not guarantee the results. I think that's sort of my positive and generous interpretation of what you're trying to get across here. I think that's the value I take from it.
I think there's also a case to be made though for just like enjoying the journey of it. Like when when you're working so hard every day to get to this goal and you're like killing yourself for it, and then at the end it might not happen anyway, then you're never really kind of enjoying life along the way. So if you are being grateful and taking into perspective that it's all part of the journey. Like there's something to be said about that too, I think.
We'll give you the final word.
Okay.
Jonathan can get the final word.
Yeah, yesterday we were at Ocean Park and my kids really wanted to get on the ride. And we were like, you got to put in the hard work and stand in line with everybody else. And this is like a 10-minute long line. So, it's like forever for them. And then these like other little kids were really bad and they just cut in front. And because their parents, didn't want to teach their kids about the value of hard work and everything. So the mom did the hard work and then the kids just ran in and then cut in front of everybody and got onto the ride first. I think that's kind of like the journey thing that I'm trying to teach my children, which is like, oh, yeah, you got to put in the hard work. Otherwise, your ride is not going to be as fun. But I don't know if that's true because those kids who cut in line, like, they're having fun on the train as well. They're having fun on the roller coaster. Like, if you can have it easy, why have it hard? There's so many things that people are also like naturally predisposed to, like have it easy. Like I had it super easy in law school because it was just easy for me. So many people struggled to like do certain things. I didn't study. It was just so easy. I didn't put in any hard work. And then what was the point? Like, are they any happier for it? Am I any less happy for it? I don't know. Don't think so. I mean, I see where both of you are coming from. It's just, yeah, sometimes it's just hard to swallow, like the disappointment of putting in the hard work and then it's like, oh, that just sucks. So yeah, stay humble and grateful, right? I think that's a good thing to.
Yeah, let's end on that. I like that.
Yeah.
Stay humble and grateful.
I think I think I can speak for G as well, but I think what we like about the show a lot is when we can hear about different life experiences and different perspectives. And so with that as a goal, I think we've definitely achieved that. I mean, this was just the last 20 minutes or so. There was a lot of interesting perspectives before that we didn't agree or disagree with. It was just your life experience that was interesting to hear about. But I'm excited for people listening to like hear and like, I wish I could send out a survey and be like, what does everyone think? Because I feel like there would be people who agree and people who disagree, perhaps passionately or not. And I think if that's sort of the outcome of a conversation like this, whether it's about the divorce part or the hard work part, it's all good. It's what they say. It's almost like no press is bad press.
Yeah.
So that's how I
maybe you'll make us go viral.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my jammies.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jonathan. It was great. We took up so much of your time. Hopefully, it doesn't screw up anything with your kids or your work. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Nice to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Give us a follow, give us a rating, send us an email, or if you're like Jonathan, shoot us a DM and tell us why you agree or disagree with with our takes and our opinions at That 30 Show Pod. See you all guys next week.
Thanks. Bye.